The Freeway series are 1996 and 1999 American dark comedy crime films written and directed by Matthew Bright, starring Kiefer Sutherland, Reese Witherspoon, Dan Hedaya, Amanda Plummer, Brooke Shields, Maria Saldonio, Vincent Gallo, David Allen Greer, Natasha Lyonne, John Landis, and more.
I'm your granddaughter. I'm here to take care of you forever and ever and ever. Why are you hiding? Here, let me see. There's some big, ugly fucking teeth you got, Bob.
You people's way too
Mr. Mulligans, how did you feel about Red Riding Hood and Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters?
I think I love these movies. All right, so I like the first one better than the second one, but they were different enough kind of animals to, like, I didn't gig one for not being on the same level as the other because it wasn't, they weren't the same thing. They weren't supposed to be. I think they were really fun to watch. Like, I enjoyed Freeway in that it had this, like, movies from mid-90s just seem to have, there's a little bit of a gritty feel to some of them.
Oh, wait, you watched Freeway? I thought we were really watching Red Riding Hood and Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wait. Oh,
you didn't get the updated doc. I'm sorry.
You are messing with me.
We are talking about Freeway and Freeway 2. What is it? Confessions of a Trick Baby? Yeah, buddy.
Yep. Confessions of a Trick Baby. I watched these movies, and one of the things I wondered to myself, especially with Freeway, is if you took a time machine back to 1985, this is a hypothetical, and you dropped a dump truck on Quentin Tarantino, who would have filled that space creatively? And I feel like Matthew Bright might have been one of those people.
I agree, and I also think that Oliver Stone, who produced at least the first film, was that. I think Oliver Stone was kind of the pre-Quentin Tarantino.
Do you think he had more push on the direction of this film versus what Bright was doing? Because it's like I see Bright as the writer and director. I assume that's like a central piece of it all, but I know producers will also have a lot to do with this as well.
I think if you're Oliver Stone, you do. Either just that name itself, it's like a Jerry Bruckheimer or something you get to, and you could see the delineation between the two films where first Freeway feels more like an Oliver Stone film. It's shot like a Natural Born Killers kind of.
Yeah.
Where the second one's like more fantastical.
Yeah, Natural Born Killers is something that came to mind. Like there was definitely, it felt that. Like it felt like that was the spirit that was running through this film. And I like the way it was done. It didn't feel over, like Natural Born Killers, that's the one with Woody Harrelson and they're going around. Am I getting that right? Remembering correctly?
You got it.
So that one, like, that's one of those like gore and violent kind of movies, but it's fiction. Like, it's too over the top and insane to be real life.
It has a fairy book tale quality to it, like these films, like the Rob Zombie films, kind of like Devil's Rejects and all that. All that was heavily influenced by Oliver Stone. Yeah,
but with Freeway, I didn't feel like it went. You didn't have, I don't know, it didn't feel the same. It felt like it was a little more rooted in reality, and you're seeing some of these, some of the flashaways to dreams and whatnot have that feel, but you still feel like it's still kind of rooted in reality. For as sane as all these characters end up being as you learn who they are, it was really still like, I still liked how they developed the story, developed each character, and like, it was funny how Reese Witherspoon's character, in the beginning, you feel bad for her situation in life and the abuse that character is going through, and then the bad situation that she finds herself in, and then finding out that she is not a victim, she is a straight up psycho killer who I'm like, we're 30 or 40 minutes into the movie. She did it right. She didn't just shoot him once. She shot him twice in the back.
And then she
went up to finish it. Like she went, she double tapped, she got the headshot, she did everything right. I'm like, finally, they did it right.
Yeah.
And only a crazier person is lucky enough to survive that.
Right.
Kiefer Sutherland as this mutilated when he's in the restaurant and orders the chicken soup with the voice box with the fucking straw.
Yeah.
I love how they all tied on their crazy in this movie.
Yes.
Even the cops. It was like creepy crazy, and I just love how like everyone in the movie is fucked. So okay.
Yeah, well, I want to go back because I do think that she is a victim, but she's a victim with extreme agency and extreme awareness, where she's not the typical movie victim where, you know, things are just happening to her and then she's surviving because, you know, in spite of the fact of the things that are happening. Like, she actually learns from each experience. But like you said, she's not even like... She's not smart by any means. And before we jump like too far ahead, I have just such a well-themed beer for this, so I have to point it out. It is the Disco Wolf, double IPA from Fremont. It's a huge bomber, 8%er.
That intro with all the Little Red Riding Hood cartoons that they opened it with was just like, that's not a kid's cartoon.
Right. Yeah. It's I think it's the Crumb artwork or that style or whatever it was called. But I mean, just from pure adaptations, like Matthew Bright. Okay, so Freeway, 1996 Freeway was his directorial debut, and he came from the Oingo Boingo camp. So he is a great friend of composer Danny Elfman, and Danny Elfman, older brother Richard Elfman. So they kind of gave him that break. He kind of came from that Oingo Boingo group. And that's another thing. Like we said, Oliver Stone he was the producer on the first one, but also the first movie Danny Elfman scored. So it had all these like pieces to it, like huge name actors. Of course, not at the time. You know, Kiefer Sutherland was doing things. Brooke Shields. You know, this was kind of at the decline of her career when she was just like really on the map. Like, those were your big names. But then, I mean, what a breakout performance by Reese Witherspoon. But then, you know, like I said, you had the huge name attachments like Oliver Stone and Danny Elfman. So it was like, there was no way that... I think one of the famous critics, I think it was Roger Ebert, said he tried to hate this film so hard and he just couldn't. Like, that was the consensus about how people felt about this film. It was this little trashy, almost like Grindhouse-esque type film, but had so much like agency and was just like so well done that it was a blast to watch.
It felt like it was tuned. It felt like it was doing the job it was designed to do. And that's what I liked about it. Sort of like, you know, we can, I know people can, once they get into really like combing through all of the content that's put out by Hollywood and having the experience of seeing the flaws and seeing the details and being able to nitpick through something to be like, I give it a B+ because of reasons A through 27. Like, that's... I'm being newer to this. I don't have all of that, but I can give you a feeling on it. And this one felt good. This felt like one of those things from the 90s where I pit this against a Tarantino. Like, I like the way this movie pulled together. It was an awesome flick.
It slots well with that and like a true romance and all the things that were kind of popular, you know, around that time, for sure. Because the dialogue was so good and the performances, you know, I can't say enough about the performances. We're you know, just the opening scene of her trying to spell like the cat drank the milk.
Yes.
And it was so like, it wasn't done in a mean-spirited way because she's like so like trying. And like, and then she starts making out with her boyfriend afterwards. She's like, "Hey, were you rewarded enough or whatever?" And it's just like, unfortunately, my father used to live in like a real small hodunk town in Texas, even though this is all taking place in California. But these type of people exist. I've been in these houses, and it was almost, you know, watching it now, like rewatching it now, it was almost hard to watch because of how much Matthew Bright nailed it.
It wasn't some Hollywood type production where everybody's living in these 5,000 square foot homes and everything's pretty and perfect. This is dirty and gritty, and people that live in some hard knocks and they're crazies out there, and we get to see one of those stories of one crazy getting their butt kicked by another one that can, you sometimes you got to out crazy the crazy, and that's what happened here. And you just keep coming back to like, I'm just thrilled that a character, like you said, took that agency and didn't just shoot and run away. Oh no, just finished it. Like, be done. Be gone.
And the whole movie is just her not taking shit from anybody. Like, even when she's in prison, like the kind of alpha, Spanish gal comes up and she just like destroys her face with a phone
on her. Oh my god. It was cool and like there's a lot of actors in here that you'll find throughout a whole bunch of other productions. God, who is the actor who played the lead detective in this movie?
Dan Hedaya.
You see him. He's been in tons of movies.
You had Dan Hedaya and Brittany Murphy from Clueless in this.
Yeah, like Brittany Murphy was tying on her usual crazy. That was pretty awesome to see. You've got and Dan Hedaya, like I remember him from Addams Family, and it's just like fun to see. He's still kind of like that character kind of comes through in this work.
He played Dan Hedaya. For the most part.
That's his method acting. He's got one character and they just apply him to the movies where they need him.
Yeah. Detached father or detached cop or
Yeah.
But the other cop was great. Like the other cop was just such an asshole and it worked
well. It wasn't even good cop, bad cop. It was Hideo cop, weird cop.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre. Really trying to egg him on. And then Reese's character just goes straight up redneck. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, but just so believable. Like, and how young she was during this. Like, this is one of her first roles. I think this is maybe her, fifth feature, but I'm pretty sure this was her first, headlining. Like, this is where she headlined the bill, and she ran with it, man. Like, she did such a bang-up job. I think this is probably if I'm going to be honest, probably Election is my favorite Reese Witherspoon performance. But this isn't far out. And, people, forget that she's done things like this. It's Reese Witherspoon. She's in the latest Sweet Home Alabama analog, thing.
Yeah, this is not like if you asked me to like put a style on Reese Witherspoon's acting, this wasn't there. Like, I didn't know this existed. I didn't know this was in her wheelhouse. So it was really cool to see her playing that role, because it's usually like that hometown USA girl next door kind of stuff that you'd expect to see her in, but this was definitely not that.
Yeah.
So, kudos to her for this piece of work. This was awesome.
And I just loved how it not only works on its own, but it works as a fairy tale adaptation also. Both films do, I think.
That's the other thing. I liked how, and that this is kind of, I think this is a good segue into like the second film, just because like, I like how it was this modern day interpretation of a film, and the hints are pretty obvious. There's like little clues like the red jacket and the basket and the way it all works out. I love how they morphed Sutherland into the wolf, and that basically didn't just killed grandma. And it's just like, oh my god, they worked that part in too. Oh geez.
Bob Wolverton.
Sorry, my name is Bob Wolverton.
And we've seen how many different attempts and remakes and rehashing and regurgitations of these grim fairy tales, right? And I think especially like Red Riding Hood is one of the most adapted grim fairy tale. Hansel and Gretel, I think now it's become one of those, and I think that Freeway works a little bit more because it's a little looser, it's a little more vague, where by the time we're on Confessions of a Trick Baby, they're beating you over the head with the references. They're literally laying crack, breadcrumbs.
Yes. And then the hobos come along picking up the crack crumbs.
Which that's believable.
It's just like, although that one, when we get into Freeway 2, that one definitely takes on more of that like natural born killers kind of feel. They really jump into that one. Like in Freeway 1, there's Freeway, there's a little more plot and character development as you're going along. You have this dialogue between Witherspoon's character and Sutherland's character. When you get into Freeway 2, you're in the courtroom, you have this conviction, you've got David Alan Grier, already is there with comic relief, so you understand that this is a comedy.
Mr. Butts.
There's no confusion there. It's comedy because David Alan Grier is a lawyer, which there's no way that's no way it can be serious.
Doesn't that sound like the start of a bad joke? It's just like, so David Alan Grier's name is Mr. Butts talking to John Landis as a judge, like walked into a bar, you're like, wait, what? This is a movie?
Yeah, there's just the absurdity coming, like the judge reading the sentencing or like talking about how Natasha's character behaved. I'm like, that doesn't fly in modern day society. Judges can't say stuff like that.
You can when you're John Landis. If you've directed American Werewolf in London, then you have the carte blanche to do so.
So like they throw you immediately into, and Natasha has found a niche in this kind of like prison scene role. She with her experience, with her work in Orange is the New Black.
Absolutely,
it just seemed like this kind of like was one of those stepping stones into that genre of acting. But you've got her playing her brand of whatever kind of I say crazy is maybe there's not necessarily the right terminology, but this like every character in these stories has something broken going on. Mm-hmm. Like for one reason or another, there's something went horribly awry. When she meets up with Cyclona, Marie Calandonia,
we'll just go with Cyclona.
When she meets up with Cyclona, it felt like they jumped in. Mm-hmm. Like they really jumped into it. And by the time they got 40 minutes into the movie, I'm like, wow, they've covered a lot of ground. And then you go and check, there's still a lot more ground to cover because they're only not barely halfway through their journey.
They're not to the witch's house yet.
Yeah, they haven't even gotten to the witch's house.
Right.
Like, and you're not really seeing the witch's house until you get there. Sister Gomez is this nun that took her in, and really it was this human sex trafficking like madhouse.
Cannibal, yeah.
Cannibal. Yeah, it's insane. Like there's insanity. All of this insanity with a layer of comedy over the top of it. And it was just, it was a different feel. It wasn't the same kind of grit, and it wasn't the suspense drama. It was comedy drama, and it was a lot of murder. My God, there was so much murder in this one.
Kids are friends, not food, right? No, but the difference is like the stark difference between the two of them, because I do think that Freeway 2 is insanely enjoyable, but on a different level. But the differences definitely are the performances, because although I liked Cyclona, and that's like a checker moment. Like if you're in with what her character is doing and how she talks and all that, then you're in. But I know that performance turned off a lot of people, but she has to convey a lot. Like she is going through it like that. She has a lot of the entire movie is fleshing out her character and peeling back layers to her character and finding out more about her. The problem is there's almost little to no character development for Natasha Lyonne's character, and her performance, put next to Reese Witherspoon's performance, it doesn't even look like it should be in the same porta potty of the same ballpark. She almost fucking ruins the entire film for me. I think she's actually terrible in this, which is weird because, like you said, she nails it in Orange is the New Black. She knows how to do this. But
I didn't have that negative of an impression on her performance here. I think that she was providing some of that comic relief, like, because David Alan Grier's character is not central to this movie. He is a supporting role in the entire thing. And Natasha and Maria are central to this whole movie. Like, this is their journey. So you have Maria doing all of this weird and insane stuff and definitely going on that homicidal streak. But Natasha is playing this role of a character who just wants out and just wants to be done with the BS that she has to go through, and figuring out like she's like this unwilling passenger on this trip of madness south of the border with somebody who she knows, as the story goes on, realizes is more and more messed up, and finding out towards the end why she's messed up, and taking on this role of like stepping up for this person that hasn't had anyone stepping up for them,
Yeah.
and really going to bat for her right at the very end. And that, I think, I get, like, if you want to talk about the nuances of the acting and maybe it wasn't her best performance, that's fine. But I still think this is not I don't think this is the worst work she's ever done. Like, there's other things that she's done that does, like Russian Doll is one of those Netflix series that she did that just didn't like keep my attention. Sure. Or, it wasn't like it was fun to watch in the first episode, and then as you keep getting into it, it's just not working for me. It's sort of like there's some things that actors will do that just don't work for some consumers, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But I don't personally giggle for it. I think it was fine. It was a different type of film and different kind of feel. I think she provided some of that witty, sarcastic comedy that helps temper out the character that Maria is trying, putting out there with Cyclona.
Yeah, and I realize that they both can't be crazy all the time, but the differences between the two characters and what made Vanessa's character more believable is, like we said, she has agency. She has those type of she has that type of street smarts, not actual smarts, but she has a inherent like survival instinct. Where it kind of tried to paint that a little bit with Natasha Lyonne's character in the other one, where I think like Vanessa would have jumped off the ride a long time ago, because and even more so with Natasha Lyonne or Crystal, because they paint her as more of a selfish, disconnected type of person, where I didn't buy that she was just like constantly annoyed by Cyclona, but always was sticking with her. Selfish, like self-preservation type person. But then no matter what happened, she was like, oh, okay, well, let's go, because the movie has to keep happening. And I'm like, oh no, Vanessa would have fucking been out like, at 5 minutes in. Like, it was just the contrast of the two. And that's not, I can't put all the blame on Natasha Lyonne for that. I can for doing the Darth Vader no when Cyclona like shoots the border patrol. That was borderline a deal breaker. But I have to give a little bit of shit to Matthew Bright for just writing her that way, because he wrote both of them, he directed both of them, and he wrote the same character twice, but made the second one not as well, like half-baked, basically. We already talked a little bit about Kiefer Sutherland's, Big Bad Wolf, but yeah,
Gomez?
Sister Gomez, played by Vincent Gallo, man. Like, it's hard to pick which one did it better, because they were both absolutely fantastic. And Vincent Gallo is known for being that, he's like a Johnny Depp type, but on a budget. Like, he does more independent films. So his big claim to infamy was being the writer and director and like cinematographer and everything for The Brown Bunny, which was like submitted. It was like a movie that he made. He submitted it to Cannes and all that, but it showed full-on unsimulated fellatio during that film. So he is one of those. He's one of those, a true artiste. But I think that type of willingness to fucking go for it was why he was just so creepy and so menacing, and why his Hansel and Gretel witch really worked.
That character was all kinds of creepy. When he's feeding Natasha's character that big roasted pig, and all I could think is it poisoned? Did he poison it? Is she going to eat poison? Is she going to live through this one?
Right.
Why are the kids just sitting there? Why aren't the kids eating? What the heck's going on? Where'd the kids go? It's like,
you eat my tamales? Yeah. It's great because both movies never stop winking at you. Like, it respects your intelligence enough to understand that what you're watching. Matthew Bright knew that you were watching Red Riding Hood and Hansel and Gretel, right? So they weren't trying to hide the fact that Kiefer Sutherland is the Big Bad Wolf. That's why they fucking name him Bob Wolverton. And even before he kind of makes his reveal of being this, female serial killer, it's obvious to who he is.
The first Freeway definitely had a feel of being more put together, and maybe that's, like you said, based on you've got the producer being a big piece of that, and then he's not involved in this project being a totally different feel entirely. And that's the thing, I didn't, for whatever shortcomings this movie had, it wasn't like I was comparing it to the first one, because I know that we are doing two different adaptations of two different stories, and one's designed to do its thing differently than the other. And that's why I kind of took it as it was.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with just, and this is probably just me being a snob or whatever, but during this, like the first one, there were some great looking shots, and I want to say, I'm not going to give it total credit, because when Reese Witherspoon enters the diner and the door closes, you could literally see the reflection of the boom mic. So I mean, it's not a perfectly shot film.
Now I need to go back.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's plain as day. I'm not going to say this is a perfectly, shot film or anything like that, but just like the setup of what happens to Brooke Shields, like when she realizes that he's like a child pornographer and all this, and that
serial killer. Yeah,
you hear the shot off screen and the officers run in, and just the way that is shot is really interesting. Like it has a lot of care and detail, where the second one, actually, I don't even, I'm like talking myself out of it. Actually, the second one had some really cool overlays, like especially when Cyclona was kind of going off the deep end. So there was a lot of attention to detail to both. Like they gave her some like weird contact lenses to like make her pupils dilated in different areas.
That like when her eyes were dilating, that seemed like a funky effect. It's 99, so it's not like it's a CGI effect. That was a good touch.
Yeah.
Although, I gotta say, I didn't believe the gunplay in the second movie nearly as much as I did in the first.
No, yeah. It tried to like devolve into like a shoot 'em up at the end, and it felt a little lazy.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, it's two handguns back and forth. You're not getting all those hits. I'm sorry.
They gave her a line too. She's like, I'm the something to death, baby, or something. I was like, oh my God. Turned into fucking Die Hard for a second. I'm like, this is not what this movie's about. But then it kind of comes around. In a lesser film, I think they both walk out and they find some loophole to save both of them. But no, it's just like, no, I'm a serial killer. I don't deserve to be here. And they set that up with a lot of emotion to it. So they added some weight to that scene. Mm-hmm. But yeah, before that, just like the shooting of all the random perverts is very schlocky.
Yeah. And then you've got the lawyer and the cops down there at the end at the standoff, and she wheels and deals with the Mexican police chief, and she walks out and she's basically like, oh, we're going to just tie up this loose end of the fact that you mugged all these people and stole all their money. And like, oh, yeah, they're not pressing charges. They're family men. They don't want to. And then she just walks off with David Allen Greer, who happens to be there in Tijuana just because. Because that's how he does.
That's how he does. Yeah, no.
He's hooking up with all of his clients.
And I mean, is there a bigger wink at the camera when they throw Sister... why can't I fucking remember her name?
Sister Gomez?
When they throw Sister Gomez in the fire and she suddenly gets a nose and a chin?
That's just like, what's even happening there? It's like, that's where it's getting weird.
Yeah.
You're like, why is this... Is that part of the cross-dressing? Is that a thing?
I guess, heat does weird things to the pores. And the other thing is where I think that Freeway works a little bit more is that you could kind of, like, even though that Vanessa is such a badass and she doesn't... Her character isn't asking for you to feel bad for her. You're just along for the ride. Of course, you are rooting for her because of her circumstances, but you're not like, oh, this poor kid. Like, you're like, yeah, this kid's fucking, taking it down. Where the other characters of the other movie, it's hard to really root for anybody. I guess you could argue at, the very end, once you get all the information on what happened to Cyclona to make her the monster that she has become, then you start to kind of feel. But I mean, at any point, Natasha Lyonne could have like completely died from huffing the spray paint, and I wouldn't have cared. Like, it would have been a better movie.
Okay. Yeah, I give movies stars based on how many main characters are killed off, and Freeway almost got one early on, but they waited. They held off on that one.
Yeah.
I do have to gig them on one thing. At the very end of Freeway, in the first one, Natasha should have gotten at least a bullet, a flesh wound.
Vanessa?
Like Vanessa, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, Vanessa, Reese Witherspoon's character should have gotten a bullet, not killed her. Like a flesh wound, anything. They unloaded an entire clip out of a semi-automatic pistol, and the shots
point
are flying
blank range.
Point blank, they're flying everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't tell me she didn't get a grazing shot. There's no way. That's not possible.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
They should
Give
have
me
hired
something.
a stunt double with the right color wig, too, during the scuffle scene, but I digress.
Oh, I missed that part.
Oh, man.
I was too busy focusing on she's trying to beat the crap out of somebody with a gun, and she's not dead yet. She's still not dead. Oh my gosh, she's gonna live.
The alternate title for the first Freeway is "Why Won't You Die?"
I can see the gigs for the second one, but I don't care. I like them both.
Yeah, I mean, so and that's great. Like I'm so happy because not only did people not see Freeway, like the first one, it had a $3 million budget. It only made $295,000 in the box office. No one saw this film, even with those big players attached to it, like Oliver Stone. It was an Oliver Stone production. Like, and back then in 1996, that really, really meant something. It means something now, but back then.
Well, we've had this conversation before. We had this conversation with 2 Days in the Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a 96 film.
Right.
And we went looking through we went and looked at the releases with the big hits, where 96 had a lot of blockbuster, just nuts movies. They were huge. They were dwarfing. It's like parking Pluto next to Jupiter. Like, that's the level of movies that were coming out that year.
Right.
So, no, I'm not shocked that this didn't get viewed, because you had Tarantino films in the mix, you had other big budget films in the mix that made a ton of money,
right.
And there's only so much attention to go around. So yeah, I'm not shocked. It didn't lose money because it was a bad film. Right. It just, if it showed up anywhere near one of those giants, there's no way. It didn't have a chance.
And I think this was released on HBO first too. It went June 8th was the release on HBO, and then August 23rd, that's when they did the theatrical release, because they thought they really had something because of the feedback it was getting from the kind of straight to HBO release.
Oh, I had no idea that's interesting. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, maybe that's the early days of them trying to do stuff like that, I'm guessing. So, sure, they were talking about different mediums. Well, nobody's going to go and see a movie that they've already seen on HBO. Like, they did it backwards. Like, I think they were that was before Netflix, and maybe they were trying to do this direct to the consumer thing just to test the waters to see if it would work in the movie theaters. But that's where you've got this shifting methods of consumption. Like, it wasn't the same. I don't think I'll bet you if they went to the theaters first with this movie, with an Oliver Stone movie, even with all of those gigantic blockbuster movies that were running around, they may have done better. They may have at least broken even, at the very least. And a $3 million movie, even in 96, that's not a lot. That's not a huge budget.
Right,
like,
no.
They weren't using special effects. This was like just camera work and acting. And honest to God, they definitely probably could have done better if they went straight to film or straight to theater. So that might be a part of it. They didn't, just people who wanted to watch it already did. Oops.
Yeah. Freeway 2 was total opposite. They knew what they had, and it just went straight to VOD. And I think that was probably the right move, because it was anyone that was like excited to watch Freeway 2 was looking forward. It was probably already a cult fan of the first installment. And this is not the two films, besides the titles, the fact that they're adaptations of Grimm fairy tales, and the fact that you see a scene where someone is watching Freeway in Freeway 2.
I enjoyed that one. That was fun to be like they're playing the old movie on the new movie.
Yeah. Besides that, there's no connection at all. There might as well be in a different universe or whatever, because it's not really a sequel of sorts. It's more of an anthology like film series, which I would love to see more of these. Like, I think today if Matthew Bright wanted to dust this franchise off and did an 8-series Netflix show of like Freeway, but every single episode is a different adaptation of a fairy tale told this way. Like, Bright blew up, and Bright was dog shit. Like, if Bright made money for Netflix, then why couldn't like someone that actually knows what they're doing? Like, this is the best adaptation of these grim fairy tales like in a long time, or at least in the top stratosphere of them.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see that kind of. I wonder what else. There's plenty of other fairy tales they could do, but like, have there been other adaptations fairy tale wise?
Yeah, like I said at the top, like Hansel and Gretel, witch hunters, or even last year was Gretel and Hansel, which they try to rip off like the witch, that type of style, which it just kind of failed miserably. It didn't fail miserably. There was some things to like about that movie, but it just didn't. It was just they're always trying to do like period pieces, where this was what happens if this fairy tale happened today, and even that's been done before, but I don't think it's been done as well since or ever as well as Matthew Bright did. So I'm really surprised, and I'm very excited that you liked these films, Johnny. Who would you recommend Freeway and Freeway 2 Confessions of a Trick Baby to?
I mean, I'd recommend them both together, because if you're going to enjoy the first one, you'll be fine with the second one, unless you're like a huge movie snob. But the truth of the matter is, they're different animals altogether. Mm-hmm. And if you like these actors, you're gonna like what you're seeing with Natasha's character in the second movie. You're going to be surprised at what you're seeing from Reese Witherspoon in the first one, especially if you've only seen her later work and never saw some of the earliest stuff like this movie. That's like, I think if you were into movies in the 90s, if you like the Quentin Tarantino movies, if you like those Natural Born Killer kind of movies, you're going to enjoy Freeway. And if you need something that's lighter and more comedy driven, you're going to find that with Freeway 2.
Yeah, you're talking about child cannibalism as your light-hearted fare. Yes. If you're down with dark comedy, child cannibalism, yeah.
They save that to the end. In my defense, like the rest of the movie's fine, but that end part's too creepy.
Right. Yeah. The crack, trail of breadcrumbs was.
Yes, the crack trail of breadcrumbs. That was fantastic. I did another fun little note. Not just did they use the movie, like they played the first movie and the second movie as kind of that like little link together. The drifter in the boxcar is the same actor who played Larry in the first movie, the stepfather.
Right. I'm so glad you brought that up, because God damn it, do I wish they would have made that the same character.
That would have been hilarious. I even think didn't like he mention his name in the second movie? I think he said his name was Larry.
It's not the same character, because I went on and looked. Yeah. I was just like, oh, that could have been your connective tissue, and that was so good. Like,
that would have been great. Like, he got out of jail, he's like drifting on. He jumped parole and just went drifting, and there he is with the bag of crack.
The same guy. Yeah, exactly.
It was literally the same person.
You sucking the glass dick in the first episode, or the first movie rather.
Yeah. That would have been a fun tie-in if they could have like made that the exact same character.
Yes, absolutely. I would recommend this, especially I would definitely recommend Freeway to anyone that is an aspiring filmmaker that likes these type of kind of see. It's not. I don't want to say it's a trashy film. It's not a trashy film. This is a very well-made film. It's a high concept, well executed. Sometimes it falls on its face with boom mics and stuff like that, but some of the best have those faux pas. They did work. Absolutely. And that's this is a movie where they were all doing their jobs and working at it. Yeah. Performances off the charts, great scene composition. I think it's written to the nines. I love Freeway. Like, it is just a solid film. And in comparison, Freeway 2, I would recommend this more for if you like that trashier type of film, more of like your exploitation, your sexploitation type of films, where it's just a little bit, this is more of like the Showgirls audience, where it's just like, yeah, I'm cool because it's Paul Verhoeven, but I'm also here because it's Showgirls. that's your Freeway 2, right? Like that. It's got a little bit more trash of where Matthew Bright wanted this franchise to go, which is criminal because I think he was really onto something with this concept and his execution of both films. I would love to see him kind of pick this back up and do a series. But that's our reviews of Freeway 1 and 2. We're not really calling this a double review or whatever. This is more of a series review. But yes, I am John the host, but that is Johnny Mulligans. Where can everyone find you, sir?
Oh, you can find me on the Twitters at Johnny Mulligans and here.
Perfect. You can find me on the Twitters as well at John the Host. You could also follow this very video podcast on its own Twitter handle. That's at The Cult of Films, all undercase. And you could also find this in podcast form on your iTunes, your Spotify's, all that stuff. Leave us, warm car, Budweiser red beers, or however you rate, some cans of spray paint. We're really slumming it here. So please leave us all the trails of crack cocaine. Until next time, Johnny, let's do this again sometime because this was fun.
Yes, let's get back to this.